What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another Euro 2024 fantasy video. In this one, I'm going to run through my Limitless Draft for Matchday 2. It's not a chip that I'm planning to use in this Matchday, but I know plenty of you are, so I wanted to run through what my team would look like. Yes, I am recording this very early in the first round of group games, but ultimately there's not a huge gap between Matchday 1 games finishing and Matchday 2 1 starting, so some of the content will have to be a little bit earlier. Hopefully that's all good. Make sure to give it a like, hit that subscribe button, and let's get into it. Alright, let's start with the defensive players first of all. This is a limitless draft, so the budget is unlimited. You can go for whichever players you want, but some of you might be looking to use your wildcard in Matchday 2 instead. So as we go through, I'll try and touch on some cheaper options that you could go for if you're not using the limitless chip. In goal, I've gone for Livakovic, the Croatian goalkeeper. They're playing Albania. And then Castells, the Belgian goalkeeper, they're playing Romania. Both of those are pretty good fixtures. Obviously, this is being recorded quite early in the first lot of group games, so we haven't seen every team play. But one of the matches we have seen is Spain versus Croatia. Now, Croatia lost that game, and Spain were definitely the better side. But I didn't come away from that thinking that Croatia were awful. They did have periods throughout that game where they created a few chances, and defensively, I think they'll be much better against a team like Albania, who did get a goal against Italy very early on from a bit of a mistake. But after that, they didn't really trouble them massively. A few Donnarumma saves, of course. But I think Croatia will do all right in that game. And I think on paper, it's one of the best fixtures you've got this week. So Livakovic and Guy, I think, is good. Castells, Belgium, we're expecting them to be strong. Haven't seen them play yet. But I don't think the result of that game, unless Belgium lose, like, who are they playing in Matchday 1? Let me just double check now. Unless they lose, like 3-4-0 to Slovakia or something, I'm not going to be worried about the Belgian defence. And I think Romania is a good fixture. I've actually gone for the double up on Croatia with Vardio, who's 5.5 million. And I know people are going to look at that Spain result and think that's quite crazy. But I think a bit like how I said before the tournament started, not to let the friendlies affect your choices too much. We shouldn't let just one match change our opinions too much either. And before the tournament started, I was eyeing up Croatia for Matchday 2 because of the game on paper being Albania. And I think that I would stick to that. And also, a lot of the more attacking defenders around the 5.5-6 million price point, they've got quite tough fixtures in Matchday 2. So let me just go find it up here. You know, Spain are playing Italy. So you've got Carvajal, Cucurella, DeMarco, who's actually in this team, and I'll talk about him in a minute. They're all playing against each other. It is going to be difficult for a clean sheet. Netherlands, we'll see whether Dumfries or Frimpong play and how attacking they are. They've got France, that's going to be tough. If Theo Hernandez is fit, he's playing against Netherlands, that's going to be tough as well. So I think back in the fixture with Croatia is more than viable, and that is something that I would do. I've left Trent in there from my original draft for Matchday 1. It looks like he's going to start for England tonight against Serbia. We'll obviously get that confirmed and see how he plays. Denmark is probably, well, it's not probably, it is England's toughest fixture of the group. And depending on the result tonight against Serbia, there could be a lot of pressure on that game if England don't win the first match. But I still think defensively England are going to be pretty decent. And we're obviously expecting Trent to be fairly attacking from that midfield role. And as I've just mentioned, a lot of the other more expensive defenders in and around the price point like Trent have got more difficult fixtures, right? Denmark is not easy, but it's not Spain, Italy, Netherlands, France, etc. So I think Trent would definitely be in for me. And there's not really a better England defender. Like if you were on wildcard, you could go for Gay instead of Trent to save $1 million. But on Limitless, there is no question about who the most attacking defender is going to be. I've left Mittelstadt in, who obviously is cheap, right? He's only 4 million. So on Limitless, you don't really, want 4 million defenders. You want to spend as much as you can. But watching that Germany game against Scotland, I don't think that Rudiger or Tar are any more attacking. Mittelstadt did look like he was more than comfortable to take a shot. A lot of them went into kind of row Z, or row Z, I should say. But I think on another day, maybe he goes and nicks a goal. And Hungary is a pretty decent fixture. Now, I don't think Hungary will be as bad as they were against Switzerland for most of the game. And Germany obviously did really well against Scotland. I think it is going to be tougher, this match for them. But there is still every chance they're going to get a clean sheet. And I think throughout the group stages, I'll be back in Germany to get a clean sheet in every game. Didn't happen against Scotland, primarily because of Rudiger. But they've got a chance to get one against Hungary. And Mittelstadt seems to be the most attacking out of all their defenders. So despite him only being 4 million, he would still be in. And then the last spot, on the bench, I've got Cancelo. I think Portugal triple up when they've got Turkey on the last day. would definitely be something I would go for, and we'll talk about the attackers in a minute. So Cancelo would be in for me as well. Again, he should be pretty attacking. If Portugal line up in match day 1 and play Mendes and Dalot, then maybe I'd have a few concerns about that, but I'm pretty sure Cancelo is going to play, so he would be in. And then the final defender spot is almost like a roaming one. So I've put DeMarco in because I watched that game against Albania last night and he was super attacking. He didn't come away with any attacking returns, but he came close on multiple occasions. Now, obviously, playing against Spain is much more difficult than playing against Albania. He's not going to have as many chances, but he is still going to get forward, right? When Italy play, he's the highest defender, almost playing like a left winger at times. But what I would say in this draft is that spot is the one I'm least sure about. I think Livakovic and Vardy will double up more than happy with. Trent looks good. Mittelstadt, Cancelo and Casteels on the bench, all decent. That last spot is a roaming one where you could just pick someone else. If you want to go for Carvajal from Spain, absolutely. Obviously, he's attacking as well. Scored a goal yesterday. You could go for Theo Hernandez. If Frimpong comes on and looks good and it looks like he's going to start, even though they're playing France, you might put him in for the attacking returns. I really don't mind. Obviously, you could change goalkeeper from Casteels and put in De Kuyper or Castagna from Belgium instead. There's lots of different ways you can play this. And maybe that is a slightly better option. Maybe you put Donnarumma or Unai Simon in goal and maybe put De Kuyper or Castagna in instead. You can mix it around. But ultimately, there is kind of one spot where you're either going for an expensive player but with a difficult fixture but could be attacking, or you're picking someone cheaper from another team. So like Ukraine, for example, got no players in this squad from Ukraine, but they could be decent. They've got Slovakia. So someone like Konoplia, who I think is their right back, probably going to be the most expensive most attacking defender from them. And obviously we'll see them playing match day 1 before you have to make any final decisions. He could be an option. You've got that psychological thing when you play that Limitless chip that you want to spend as much money as possible. And that's why I've got DeMarco in. But it absolutely could just be, a DeMarco, all those defenders I've just mentioned, right? Or you can just go for someone cheaper. Even like, a Swiss defender, they're playing Scotland, right? And again, I don't expect Scotland to be as bad as they were against Germany. That was a very tough game. But Switzerland were good against Hungary. They controlled that match for a lot of the game, especially in the first half. So someone like Vidma, Cher, Akanji, they could all be options as well. If you can get over that psychological barrier that, you've got unlimited budget and you really want to spend it. I mean, you could even go for a third Croatian defender if you wanted to and just go blanket defense. But I think in a game where you can make substitutions, I don't mind going for a tiny bit more upside of going for that attacking defender instead, like DeMarco, knowing that if it doesn't work out, you can sub him off for someone else. And with Mittelstadt, Trent, Vardy and Cancelo, you've got some really solid options who are all pretty attacking and they've got good fixtures as well. So looking at the midfield next, the way I built this draft was basically to go through all the fixtures and decide where I would want a triple up based on the fixtures. And I went with Portugal, Germany and Belgium as 3 teams where I'd probably want 3 players. Then obviously you just mix a few others in after that. So as well as Mittelstadt in midfield, I've gone for Musiala and Wirtz, because if you watch that game against Scotland, they were both absolutely incredible. This is not me turning around and saying that Gundogan is now terrible or anything like that. If you're on the strategy where you're not using Limitless to match day 3 and there's no chip being used in match day 2, holding on to Gundogan is absolutely fine. I actually thought he was pretty good, had a few chances, probably would have taken that penalty if he hadn't got that big knock before it. But if money's no object, I'm definitely taking Wirtz and Musiala instead. I think Gundogan at 7 million is good value, but Wirtz and Musiala from open play were both incredible, and they will get chances against Hungary. I think it's worth bearing in mind that Germany do have quite a lot of squad depth, so they can bring on players like Sané, etc., and these two might get subbed early, especially if they're absolutely cruising like they were against Scotland. But I think from the start, they're going to get at least 60, 65 minutes, hopefully more, and they're definitely going to cause Hungary problems. I think going into the tournament, a few people were kind of, I wouldn't say down on Germany, they just weren't really talking about them too much, but as said before, they've got Nagelsmann, they've got a really good first 11, the squad is decent as well. They are going to cause teams problems, and they've got home advantage too, which is good when you're winning, right? That's obviously helpful. If you start doing badly, having a bunch of your own crowd there might be a bit of a problem if they turn on you, but I don't expect that to happen. I think Hungary is a decent fixture. So those two would be in for me. On the bench, I've got De Bruyne for Belgium against Romania. We obviously haven't seen Belgium play yet at the time of recording, but I'm absolutely expecting him to be not only the most involved midfielder from them, but also the one that gets the most minutes as long as he can stay fit and get through games, which I think he'll be fine for, by the way. Like, Trossard could be good as well, but if one of those two players is getting subbed and they're fully fit and available to play the whole 90, it's definitely Trossard before De Bruyne. So he would be in for me. I think Romania is a decent fixture. Bruno Fernandes, I think he's one of those players that I can already see, as long as Portugal are in the tournament, he's probably going to be in my team. Like, if I was using the Limitless this week, he would be in. If I'm using the Limitless in Matchday 3, which I am, he'll probably be in because he's the kind of player that will just play every game. And Portugal are probably going to look quite strong. Maybe there's going to be an upset in Matchday 1. You never know, but I doubt it. And I think Turkey's not an easy fixture. But I just really like Bruno Fernandes. I think when you've got money to burn, he's got to be in for me. And then I've gone for Bellingham. Now, when I was putting this draft together, I almost had the Bellingham spot similar to DeMarco, where it's a bit of a roaming position. If you've got a preference for a different midfielder, you could go for someone else instead. And there might be someone that pops up from the rest of the matches in Matchday 1. But when I looked at it a bit more, you need the captain on the Thursday. And the choice is actually quite difficult because you've got Slovenia versus Serbia. Maybe someone like Mitrovic could be in, but then you're taking up a forward spot. England versus Denmark. But the two players you'd probably want from there are Højlund and Kane. Again, they take up forward spots, and I don't have Harry Kane in this draft, spoiler alert. Maybe someone like Eriksen, but playing against that England defence I think will be quite tough. And then you've got Spain versus Italy. So Williams, Jamal, Morata, all good for Spain, but I don't think that's an easy match against Italy. And most people are probably not going to go for an Italian captain. Now, I've said before, you don't have to have the absolute best captain every single day. So if you've got DeMarco in the squad or Carvajal, you could just captain them as a stopgap. And if it goes wrong, you've got whoever on Friday and then Saturday. But I think, for me, I'd probably want an England attacker on that day. And so although Bellingham felt like the position where actually you could probably change it, I just think I would have him for captain against Denmark. You could go for Trent, of course, as well. But I think I'd want to go for an attacker because I think in terms of clean sheets, that's going to be England's toughest challenge. They may well concede to Serbia tonight, right? It's definitely possible, but Denmark's going to be more of a challenge. Now, you could go for Saka, you could go for Foden if you've got a preference. It doesn't really matter, but I think in terms of minutes, Bellingham is the man, and we've seen what he can do for Real Madrid this season. He's an incredible player, and hopefully he's going to put that in to an England shirt. So I would actually have him in, despite when I made this draft thinking, that's probably a spot you could change. So there's not too many other options, in my opinion, in midfield that are better than the 5 I've picked that also have better fixtures, right? And obviously, I've just mentioned Jamal. I remember that obviously he's a forward, not a midfielder, right? So you can't even pick him if you wanted to. But there's really no other option. Like, Vargas was quite good for Switzerland. Are his minutes going to be absolutely secure? I'm not sure. He's 6 million against Scotland. But are you really going to put him in ahead of Bellingham, De Bruyne, Fernandes, Wirtz, Musiala? It just doesn't seem right to me. It might be that Sudakov does really great in Matchday 1 and therefore you want him Matchday 2 against Slovakia. But again, he's playing on the Friday. So I think, look, it might be that Wirtz and Musiala go and get double digits on the first day and you just stick with them, which is more than reasonable. But I would want the captain there, so I think Bellingham would be in for me. Let's take a look at the forwards. So the three I've gone for up front are Mbappe, who's got the Netherlands, Ronaldo against Turkey, and then Lukaku against Romania. There's definitely other forwards that you could think about putting in instead, like Harry Kane, for example, instead of Bellingham for that captaincy on Thursday. But in terms of the calibre of player and the fixtures they've got, these three are all top choices. Now, Netherlands is not necessarily easy, but I think this is one of those times where the player trumps the fixture. Like, Mbappe is so good, I don't really mind that he's playing against the Netherlands. And also, coming back to captaincy, which I just spoke about for England, on the Friday, you've got Slovakia versus Ukraine, Poland versus Austria, and Netherlands versus France. So right now, there's not really a standout option there. Like Mudryk, Sudakov for Ukraine, possibly. You could go for like a Sabitzer for Austria against Poland. But realistically, I think Mbappe is the best captain that day, and therefore he would probably be in for me, right? You could mix this around instead of, I don't know, Mbappe. Well, you could get rid of any of the forwards, really. And Bellingham, you could put in Kane as one of the three spots, and then maybe put in one of those Ukraine midfielders. But I think I'd rather captain Bellingham and Mbappe than Kane and Sudakov, probably. unless Ukraine look excellent in match day 1. So that's something to consider as well. But ultimately, these 3 look good. The main issue with this draft, because we're playing a game where you can make substitutions throughout the match day, is I've got 6 players on the last day, right? On that Saturday, you got Georgia, Czech Republic. I've got no players from that game. You could consider Kvaratskhelia, but I'd probably just ignore that on Limitless. You got Portugal playing Turkey. I've got 3 players from them. And Belgium versus Romania, so another 3 players. The issue is, if you get into a position where all your players are kind of getting some kind of returns, like maybe, you know, Wirtz goes and gets you a 5 point, and Musiala gets you an 8 or something like that, and there's just various scores like that, you get into difficulty because 3 of those players playing on the last day will already be in your 11, and obviously you won't know what they're going to score before you have to make the decision about who to bring on. So I've got Castells, Lukaku and De Bruyne on the bench for Belgium and Cancelo, and I'm playing Ronaldo or Fernandes. But because you won't have seen them play, it might be that De Bruyne and Lukaku outscore Fernandes and Ronaldo. Obviously, the flip side is you might get to the last day and you might have 4 blanks in your team already, and obviously you just take them out for the players on your bench. And this is mostly an issue for the outfielders, by the way, because Castells plays on a different day to Livakovic, but Lukaku, De Bruyne and Cancelo, you might get to a point where you bench a big score, right? Let's say everyone's done okay. You don't really want to risk it on the last day, and Ronaldo blanks and Lukaku scores a hat-trick, right? It could happen. You know, then you've benched a big score. But I think, personally, the players and the fixtures would trump the worry about benching points for me. But I just think with the way it's fallen in match day 2, like you don't want to go all in on Netherlands and France, in my opinion, just because they play earlier than Portugal or Belgium. Like Portugal and Belgium just look so much stronger. Same with Italy and Spain. And even like Højlund for Denmark playing England, right? I think if you're going elsewhere, you're going for a player that's probably not as good, right? They might have a better fixture, but the player is not quite so good. And in the case of Portugal and Belgium, I don't think they do have a better fixtures. So in an ideal world, you wouldn't have that many players on the bench that are playing last when you've also got 2 in your team. But I don't think it's literally avoidable, of course, but I don't think it's worth doing. That's where maybe having Kane instead of one of Ronaldo or Lukaku, so keep Mbappe in for captaincy, have Kane instead of Ronaldo or Lukaku would give you another player earlier. That could work instead. I mean, you don't even have to get rid of Bellingham. You can have Kane as well, because I've only got Trent and Bellingham in this draft. So maybe that's the play. Maybe whoever you prefer out of Lukaku or Ronaldo you stick with, and you put Kane in instead, just to limit the amount of players on in your team, that are all playing on the last day. I mean, those that play the Champions League game will understand this a bit more than I do, because I only play these formats usually once every 2 years, but I do think that's something you want to try and avoid if possible. I just don't think it's a good thing with the fixtures the players have got. Let me know in the comments below who you would change in this team. I think it's looking pretty good. The only player I'm not that happy with is DeMarco, but even then, like having an attacking defender is probably fine. If you're on YouTube, make sure to subscribe, hit that like button. If you're listening on podcast, rate 5 stars. As I said earlier, I am recording this really early, but that is just the case with Euro tournaments, right? Because tomorrow there'll be more games. The day after that, there's more games. Then you're straight into match day 2. I cannot wait to record everything until all the games are finished, because I'll have like 3 videos to do in a couple of hours. So that's why it's this early. There may be injuries, but at the end of the day, you've got unlimited budget, right? You've got no issue with bringing in someone instead. Tomorrow, I'll probably do either match day preview or team selection, and then on Tuesday, I'll do final thoughts maybe, and then there'll be content for match day 3 as well. Anyway, I'll leave it there. Thanks for watching. Enjoy your weekend. Come on, England tonight. And I'll catch you again tomorrow.